The British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good afternoon. My name is Vivek Nakra, and here are your news updates to 3 o'clock. A record number of votes have already cast their votes in BC's election campaign. Election BC says just over 1 million people voted, which is about 28% of all eligible voters went out to vote to one of the 6 days of advance polls. Those who have not voted in the advance polls might have to face some difficulties, as Environment Canada has issued a warning for the residents about wind and heavy rain for coastal BC and heavy rain in the north. The Vancouver Aboriginal Friendship Centre Society is celebrating the 60th anniversary. Reporter Grace Miller is at the centre with more on what the centre does today.
Friendship centres in major cities across Canada were founded in order to help Indigenous people transition to urban communities. Susan Tatouche, Executive Director of the Vancouver Centre, says the centre is still serving this purpose and more.
Initially, the purpose was to have a welcoming place for people who live in the city, and people coming in from out of town as well would have a place to go. And so we've come from that to providing many programs that are needed within the area.
Located on East Hastings Street, it is a resource for Indigenous folks on the downtown east side. I'm Grace Miller for BCIT's The Crow.
The Transportation Safety Board says a mistake by a Canadian railway supervisor set off a crash between a freight train and a railway work vehicle in Carrick Creek, BC. The report says that the supervisor was inspecting the main track on December 2022 in a vehicle that can operate on both roads and rail when he noticed a defect that needed repair. The board says while the man was repairing the track, an eastbound freight train crashed into the unoccupied vehicle, but no one was hurt. It also says the railway confirmed it had implemented safety changes, including enhancing its electronic applications as well. Patients who don't speak English or French are 30% more likely to experience harm during a hospital stay in Canada. According to a new research from the Canadian Institute for Health Information, these patients are at a greater risk of unintended injuries like bed sores or medication errors. Reporter co-author Dana Riley says there is a cost equation for patients and a healthcare system.
I think there are a variety of different reasons why we might start to think about patient safety, think about equity, and think about these as key interconnected dimensions of healthcare quality.
A $600 million flood prevention project is now under review in Manitoba. The province has asked the federal government to pause an environmental assessment of the project to allow for more consultations with the First Nation community in the area. Forest bathing, or forest therapy, originated in Japan in the 1980s. Although similar to a hike in the woods, forest therapy is about staying in a moment and connecting with nature through all the 5 senses. Our reporter Isabella Calisi talks to a local guide about the benefits of the practice.
Connie Evans is a forest bathing guide at BCIT. She takes groups on the wooded path beside Gishon Creek and leads them through mindfulness exercises. These include feeling the nature around them, closely looking for anything moving in the woods, and sitting with a tree for a couple of minutes in the silence of the forest. Evans says this type of meditation is great for students and faculty, as it gives them a break from their electronics and overall stress.
Sometimes people find it difficult to do a mindfulness practice, and so this way, by walking into the forest and just enjoying using your senses, I think really benefits students. It makes you more relaxed, makes you sleep better.
Evans explains the walk isn't about the destination at the end, but rather the journey through the woods. Isabella Calisi, BCIT's The Crow.
Tensions are increasing between India and Canada after allegations of Indian agents playing a role in violent crimes in Canada, as New Delhi ordered 6 Canadian diplomats to leave in response of Ottawa's expulsion of 6 Indian diplomats earlier this week. The president of South Asian Centre of Windsor says many members of his community are feeling on edge. Fazle Baki says they hope to have clarity on whether the tension could impact processing visa between the countries. As last year, India temporarily suspended visa services for Canadians following the killing of Sikh temple leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar in BC in June 2023. Google announces enacted inaccessible via Google Translation services. Our reporter Lisa Kautum explains how it benefits the language learning.
A knowledge keeper from Lytton First Nation, Bev Phillips, has taught in UBC, and she says it's better to start learning a language when you're young.
Like some of the languages are tough. Like the sounds are they don't occur in English, so it helps you learn those sounds while you're younger.
She says that young people are into technology nowadays, and new Google Edition is something that will help youth in learning part of their identity.
It's more accessible than a lot of our elders are on reserves, far away from main cities and big centers.
Phillips adds, language is something that's missing in students' lives, something they have lost because of residential schools or colonization. Lisa Coughton, BCIT's The Crow.
Now we are joined by a reporter Lisa Kautum in the studio. Lisa, how can this addition to Google Translation service help in learning indigenous languages?
Yeah, this new edition makes learning indigenous languages so much accessible and easier because people can just go online and search up for any translation they want. They can translate the whole document as well. And it is so much easier rather than learning the language with elders because they often live far from the community centers. They live far from big cities, which makes it less accessible. And also there are not many speakers left, unfortunately.
Interesting. How important is it for the indigenous community?
So, as I said before, this makes learning more accessible, which means more people can learn the language. And a lot of times people who start learning indigenous language, they just want to find the missing puzzle piece from their family, history, or culture. Now this process can be easier.
Thanks, Lisa. Israel's foreign minister confirms that Hamas top leader Yahya Sinwar was killed by Israeli forces in Gaza. Authorities conducted DNA test on a body to determine if it was him. Sinwar was topped Israel's most wanted list since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas war, and his killing strikes a powerful blow to the militant group. Foreign Minister Katz called Sinwar's killing Wednesday a military and moral achievement for the Israel army. Sagar Meghani talks more about this leader.
Yahya Sinwar had long been Hamas's Gaza leader and took over the militant group over the summer after an apparent Israeli attack killed its previous leader. Sinwar was one of the chief architects of Hamas's attack on Israel nearly a year earlier.
Man's a terrorist. He has an awful lot of blood on his hands.
White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said some of it was American. Sinwar's death could be a heavy blow for the group, and it's also unclear what it might mean for efforts toward a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The United Nations Food Programme says the risk of famine in Gaza remains high. WFP official Antoine Renard says Palestinians must depend on international aid because the infrastructure in Gaza is largely destroyed.
Any improvements in food security we see are a result of the amount of humanitarian aid and commercial flows entering Gaza. With local food system destroyed and farms damaged.
A popular singer Liam Payne died after falling from a hotel's balcony in Argentina. Argentina prosecutors say the circumstances surrounding the death of ex-One Direction singer were suspicious. According to them, it possibly involved drugs, though there was no sign of third party being involved. A $600 million flood prevention project is now under review in Manitoba. The province has asked the federal government to pause an environmental assessment of the project to allow for more consultations with the First Nation communities in the area. Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure Minister Lisa Naylor says the former Progressive Conservative government failed to properly consultate the communities, and the NDP government is going to do so. The weather today is mainly sunny with a temperature of 12 degrees Celsius. It is expected to be cloudy by the evening and the temperature might fall later in the day. That was a news updates to 3 o'clock. My name is Vivek Nakra for BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Good afternoon, sports fans. I'm Filip Kovacevic with your sports headlines for 3:15. North Delta Baseball has created a memorial tournament to honor the recent passing of 15-year-old Dominic Gianmarco. Our reporter Keenan Tregaskis learned how the family is assisting in this process.
The Gianmarco family has worked alongside the NDBA in setting up the upcoming tournament. The tournament will be held from July 11th to 14th and is an 18U AA tournament. Chris Adams, the NDBA president, highlights the family's help in setting everything up.
Been in conversation with them throughout the process as we worked it through the board, the pre-planning, laying out the framework. They are fully on board, and they are part of the planning committee. And if it's something we end up doing annually, they envision themselves coming back and participating actively with this every year.
Adams also says they will be selling shirts with the Gianmarco name on them. Keenan Tregaskis, BCIT's The Crow.
Pitcher Luis Severino misplayed grounders 2 times, leading to a pair of unearned runs in the second inning that put the Los Angeles Dodgers ahead for good in an 8-0 romp, which gave them a 2-1 National League Championship Series lead. After the Mets loaded the bases with 1 out in the bottom half, Francisco Alvarez and Francisco Lindor both struck out against Walker Buehler. New York's NLCS batting average is down to 179, with Lindor and Pete Alonso both 1 for 11, Brandon Nimmo 1 for 10, and Alvarez 1 for 9. Emmanuel Quickley's status has become questionable for the Toronto Raptors' last game of the preseason tomorrow, as they will face off against the Brooklyn Nets. The 25-year-old guard was absent for Toronto's first 4 tune-up games because of a sprained thumb, but says he's feeling pretty good otherwise.
Had like 4 or 5 different casts to try out, just trying to find a good one that can protect me. But feel pretty good otherwise, just trying to get my wind back and stuff like that.
The Raptors are welcoming the Cleveland Cavaliers to Scotiabank Arena next Wednesday in their home opener. Virginia men's basketball coach Tony Bennett is retiring effective immediately. The program said that today that Bennett will announce his retirement at a news conference this Friday. No reasons were given for Bennett's abrupt departure less than 3 weeks before the start of the season. The 55-year-old Bennett led the Cavaliers to the national title in 2019 in his 15 seasons as the coach in Charlottesville. He made 10 NCAA tournament appearances. He just signed an extension in June to keep him on the job through at least 2030. As Hockey Canada is still dealing with sexual assault charge allegations against players on 2 of its national junior teams, the Ontario Hockey League says it's taking the recent allegations against 8 former players very seriously.
A woman alleges in a CTV report that she was sexually assaulted by 8 OHL players in November 2014 at a house where a player she was in a relationship with was billeted. CTV did not name the players alleged to have been involved or the teams they played for, but the woman says some of them went on to play in the NHL. The woman is now 32 and reported the alleged incident to Ontario Provincial Police earlier this year. The OHL says it first became aware of sexual assault allegations yesterday. Brenda Molina Navidad, The Canadian Press.
New Zealand's bowlers obliterated India's batters, and India was bowled out for 46, its lowest total at home at the end of the first day. The Kiwi batters are leading by 134 runs on the loss of 3 wickets. During the second day of the opening test against New Zealand at the M. Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru, since tonight is the 3rd day, India will be aiming to come fresh with a new plan to dismantle Kiwi batters and prevent them from running away with a broad lead. While New Zealand's goal will be to play through the 3rd day and strengthen their grip further in the game, quite a bit will also depend on how the Bengaluru weather stays in the remaining 3 days. Those were your sports headlines for 3:15. I'm Filip Kovacevic with BCIT's The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
People love to watch sports, and for Canadians, the game close to our hearts is hockey. I'm not the most hardcore hockey fan myself, but I can't help but smile when I hear my hometown won a game. which means we like hockey players, especially the ones who play well. Not so much the ones who don't. But whether they play well or not, hockey players are paid way too much money. For example, the Dallas Stars agreed to extend Jake Oettinger's contract today by 8 years for $66 million. That is over $8 million per year. The average person won't make that kind of money in decades. I believe in fair pay for everyone, depending on their job. Athletes have a limited time to make money due to the physical demands of their profession, especially hockey players, so getting more money in the short term to save for the future is fair. But too much money can lead to disassociation with normal people. I'm Filip Kovacevic, and this was your sports comment for BCIT's The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT